I think what this represents is a deeper and deeper connection that we're going to have with each other. And I think we're going to get past language and we're going to get past culture in some sort of a weird way. And it might take 100 years to do this, but I really believe there's going to be some sort of a universal operating system that allows us to exchange thoughts in a way that everyone understands, some sort of a Rosetta Stone for the human mind.
Ooh, I love that. I love that idea.
I really think it's
Rosetta
possible.
Stone for the human mind.
I think it's possible because I think, look, the new Google Pixel has earbuds, and these earbuds translate languages in real time.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you're in another country,
that's
and
fascinating,
and someone's talking in Spanish, you will hear the translation in English in real time, and you'll be able to understand what they're saying.
So that's what Esperanto was supposed to be once upon a time, right?
Yeah.
It was going to be the common language, and we would all learn it, and because we would speak it, there would be no more wars and no more awful things, they thought. And this is the digital Esperanto. Then.
I forgot about that. When was that?
That was well, Esperanto's been around for longer than this, but I mean, the big push came after the First World War was over. And the League of Nations was formed, and they were trying to figure out, how do we never have a world war again? Well, we have to understand each other, first of all. And, what if you could understand all the speeches and all the demagogues in all these other countries, right?
Yeah. That's a giant issue. I mean, the Tower of Babel is based on that.
Yeah, totally.
And that is a real issue. I can't read Korean. I don't know what they're saying. I look at Russian language, and I'm like, these characters
Cyrillic
are crazy.
Writing, yeah.
It's all a problem because the lack of communication is one of the things that makes it easier for us to look at people as the other.
Yes. Yeah, and listen, that's the common problem, because when people look at these regimes, we'll take the standard one. You talk about the Nazis, but there's a bazillion regimes like that. The first thing you do is you have to dehumanize the people you want to go after, because obviously we have human feeling towards each other. But if you can say something, and I think this is what's been most depressing for me, is that we seem to be backsliding on how we see people. But I mean, this idea that, well, for example, one of the things I see all the time, and I don't know where it comes from on Twitter and everywhere else, is this idea that that different races are inferior to white folks because white folks built all this, and therefore we must. And you turn around and go, okay, one, how is that helpful? Two, is that even true? Three, so what?
So what?
I mean, the so what part is where you just go, okay, are you doing anybody any good with this? I mean, what are we at? And truthfully, I don't think most human beings think like this. We're trying to make a living. We're trying to get by. We're trying to get a date. We're trying to, there's a bazillion things you have to do in this life. The idea that you have to be responsible for pushing back racism in America seems a heck of a lot of responsibility to put on an average Joe or Jane.
Well, I think that these conversations are very, very important, and I think we're having them more so than ever before. And these conversations show how ridiculous it is to have blind allegiance towards people that have the same amount of melanin as you do. It's so fucking stupid. All human beings essentially either came from, actually there's some speculation that some of them might have come from Europe thousands of years ago as well. But we're talking about hundreds of thousands of years ago, the very first Homo sapiens, they believe, came from Africa. Everybody migrated out of there and moved wrong. We essentially came from the same source. So all this idea of race is just based on a particular amount of time in a particular climate that forced people to adapt to that climate. In the colder, darker climates, you see paler skin. In the sunnier, hotter climates, you see more melanin. And the idea that these people that have more pale skin are superior than the people that have more melanin is just patently stupid. It's a dumb idea. If you take into account all the socioeconomic factors that cause people to live certain ways, people that are isolated, that live in certain tribal traditions, these things are all easily explained. And if you want to chalk it off to intelligence or the superiority of the white race, in 2017, you're a fucking moron. And it's a good thing that we can have these conversations so you can expose these. All these Charlottesville people that you see walking around with fucking swastika tattoos, like, Jesus Christ, you fucking dummies. Those people that were involved in those riots and all that racial bullshit that just went on, these people they need to see the reaction that the rest of the world has to them. They are isolated and insulated in their weird little worlds, and when they go global with that shit and they march with those tiki torches down the street and people mock them and talk shit about them openly online, they get to understand how the rest of the world sees this ridiculous ideology that they subscribe to. This is the power of free expression and communication that we're experiencing in 2017. And this is the power to nip a lot of this shit in the bud. If we can get past this tribal nonsense that we're all taking part of, there's tribal nonsense that's male versus female. There's tribal nonsense that's white versus black. There's tribal nonsense that's left versus right. There's nationalism. There's all this tribal stupidity. And all of this stuff is being debated and exposed, and it's happening in real time. And to you and I, it can't happen quick enough. It's still too goddamn slow. It's still too frustrating. The idea that it's still around is still mind-boggling. This kind of racism, this open, blatant racism, still exists in 2017. But it's way less prevalent than it was 1,000 years ago. It's way less accepted than it was 2,000 years ago. And I think that's a blip in time, as you know.